Yep.
Okay. Now, what I want you to do in the first, for these quick poses, is you're going to put, suppose Cheryl's standing up, you're going to put in a line of action. The line of action should more or less follow the curve of her spine. And then what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and string forms on. I usually start with the head. And I'm stringing on forms that mimic her skeletal features. This is basically, I'm putting an oval in for a rib cage. The pelvis would be, again, an oval. I would put in, again, I'm trying to follow the line of action of her spine. Basically, I put a line of action in for her shoulders, and then a line of action in for her hip bones. This type of pose is called counterpasta, and the idea is that the line of action for her shoulders and her hips go in different directions. This is a standard artist pose. I mean, she could have done a very rigid pose, which was basically just vertical. And then the small action for the shoulders and hips would have been basically parallel lines. Now I could put in small actions for the arms. Okay, so the idea that if you could draw a stick figure, you can use this technique is, this is it. The real guts of this technique is here. That's why we spend a lot of time in the beginning on quick poses. The idea is, if I can get these shapes roughly the right size with respect to one another, okay? What I keep doing in each iteration of this is that I basically fill in more. So if you can get this down in 2 minutes, I'm going to be real happy, okay? And then once we go through the break, I'll give you a few pointers on how to get a little bit more down in terms of actually getting some shapes in for the legs and arms. Okay, so we'll just take it up another level. So this would be just for a standing pose. Suppose it's a seated pose. All right, so let me give you suppose it's a cross-legged seated pose. How would I do that? Well, the line of action would probably be something like this. There's the shape of the head. I put a cylinder in for the neck. There's the rib cage. And actually, because her legs are crossed, there's line of action for the shoulder. This would be the small action for the two legs, and her arms would probably come around like that. So again, it's a stick figure that I'm stringing shapes on. And what I'm trying to do is have the shapes roughly the right size relative to one another, so that when I go back to start filling in, I don't have to make too many corrections. I mean, what I don't want to, what you're trying not to do is make the head the same size as the rib cage. I mean, this wouldn't make any sense, okay? I mean, and the rib cage, I mean, this circular shape I'm using essentially mimics actually the anatomy of the rib cage. And also for the pelvis, which you can't see, if I was actually going to put that in, this oval that I put in actually mimics the structural shape for the pelvis. So, for the first 2 minutes, you're going to have 15 of these. She's going to do a variety of different things. For instance, if she's leaning over, your line of action may be this, and you start stringing shapes on. And again, I'm almost drawing stick figures. I'm putting small actions in for the arms and legs. The big shapes that I'm stringing on the main line of action are for the head, the chest, and the pelvis. Now, if she had all her weight on one leg, I could actually put in a large triangular shape if the weight is all on one leg. Okay, and then in the next sequence, I'm going to go back, start the same way, and I'm going to come back down and fill in more details. Like I'll go back in and I'll start actually filling in some details for the shapes of the shoulders, okay, the shapes of the feet. So I'll slowly start building this up so it looks human. But the point is, the gist of the Reilly-technique is with the action, the big action, right? Small action, big action, small action, and stringing the shapes on just like a beads on a string. You want to string the shapes on, and you're measuring. I always start with the head because I use that as unit of measure, okay? And I want to make sure that the shapes that I put down, and you can use different shapes. You don't have to use ovals. You can use circles if you want, but you just want to make sure the relative size of those shapes is not too much different than as you go back and correct it and refine it to make it look more like a chest or an arm, that it's not too far off. So it's a relative comparison of shapes on action lines, and the shapes usually are ovals or circles or cylinders. And once in a while I'll use triangles, and I'll show you when I do that. Other people, like if you read any of Bridgman's drawing books, they use rectangles for the body mass, for the chest. They'll use a rectangular shape. I like ovals and circles better because they're more organic and they flow better. And one thing about this technique, as we go into it more and more, is that it's a continuous line technique. You're going to see me never remove my hand from the paper, changing line and edge, the weight of the edge by rotating the pencil, which we'll go through later on, not now. And so we're going to slowly build up week after week. I'm going to give you a little more every week, but I'm going to review everything, and you're going to get all this on YouTube. Okay, Nick.